Italy? Whiskey? Ah, Italy, you could never look at my secret. Oh no, suddenly. I don't leave me. Let's begin. Indeed.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. My name is Brian, and this is the Fireside Chat. And today, I am joined by my very special guest, Jerry Clifft. He is kind of like loosely, would you say you're friends with Arvis, the guest I had on, or just a guy you know just because
I'd say
of?
We're friends. Yeah, we spoke a number of times on the phone, and then we met once in D.C. for a meeting with bigger minds than ours that handle the issues we're going to talk about today. So.
Yeah. So if you guys missed the last one that I did with Arvis, definitely check that out. You don't need to have watched it to follow this. This is just a continuation of that. But yeah, very interesting stuff. Learning about what's going on with the sort of courts in the military. This is something we knew was going on, but we didn't really have anybody to talk to about it that had personal experience. We've had some vets on, and they will talk about kind of what the environment is like, but they've never actually been subject to any of these things. So, Jerry, why don't you start by, I guess, tell us your story and you know how you came to find this group that you're a part of.
Sure. So I mean, like any story, it has a lot of info in it, so we'll just keep it pretty broad, and as we need to, just narrow it down. So in 2016, I was court-martialed for a sexual assault charge against my ex-wife. The basis of the story is I had asked her for a divorce. She followed up with a sexual assault allegation to my commander. And the way that pipeline goes, like once it meets their door, that allegation is out of their hands and it goes immediately to investigation and to the local JAG for prosecution. Fast forward to the trial date. I mean, there was no smoking gun. It was really, she said it happened, I said it didn't. And that was it.
So it was your word against hers, nothing else.
Right.
Right? Okay.
Right. Testimony was long and drawn out. The trial lasted, I think, 6 days. And most of it was her just telling the jury and the judge how awful of a husband I was. And then a small tidbit in there, oh, by the way, he raped me. And then... Oh,
as an aside, yeah.
As an aside, yeah, kind of. I mean, we did all the legal challenges we could think of, you know, post-conviction. Anyways, her story won the day. Mine did not. I spent a little over 3 years of a 4-year sentence in a military brig in Charleston. I got out in 2019, and now I'm the highest tier registered sex offender Oklahoma can have. I have to register every 90 days. And once a year, sheriff's deputies roll out and basically do a no-knock warrant. Then, hey, we need to come in and talk to you and check your place out, you know?
Wow.
Which is a bit bizarre. And that instance happening to me is really what propelled me back in, because I'd kind of settled into life. I kind of accepted my circumstances, like, this fucking sucks, you know? But, you know, sometimes things happen. All things considering, I have a good life. I got a good job. I've got good people around me. There's a handful of people in my personal life outside my family that know my story, and it doesn't really cause issues. But I was sitting at home with my wife and my kids, and here come sheriff's deputies rolling deep into my house trying to ask me all these probing questions. And in front of my family, I was like, I'm not dealing with this for the rest of my life. And that's when I started doing some digging. I found out about the DAC iPad, which Arvis spoke about on the chat he had with you last week. And I started prepping myself to get ready for making a public statement at the DAC iPad. And then, it's strange how the universe works. Once you start trying to move in a certain direction, things start coming your way. I had a former jury member reach out to me and contact me about some stuff after he retired, mind you. He waited until he retired to tell me this, which makes me think maybe he was worried about some blowback himself.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me about some things that went on off record that we were never made aware of. We can get back into that after I finish talking about getting in with the DAC iPad and Narvis. But I rolled that into my statement and telling my story at the DAC iPad. And I did it telephonically first. And shortly after the meeting was over, I did my statement. I'm at the gym and my phone rings and it's a Virginia number. I don't know anybody in Virginia these days. And I didn't think that was a coincidence, so I answered it, and it was Arvis. It basically asked me where I'd been hiding. Because that's one thing about this is everybody that goes through this, it gets fired up and they get ready to kind of take a stand. They all think they're by themselves, and they're really not. Like there's a growing movement of people putting their foot down and saying that it needs to stop, it needs to be fixed. There's problems, and that's how me and Arvis got in touch. So
yeah. And so I noticed it was weird. We got like 3 people, I think, reached out to us around the same time. And yeah, one of them was Arvis, one of them was you. And I actually got everybody mixed up because they all had such similar stories. So I want to know, first of all, again, I really appreciate you coming on our show to talk to us because we're kind of like small channel, corner of the internet, but we like to talk about these kinds of issues. We think that they're very important. How did you come to learn about Honey Badger Radio?
I can remember hearing about the Honey Badger movement in a magazine while I was incarcerated. I believe it was either Time or Men's Health. It was one of the two. And I don't even really remember what the gist of the story was, but it was basically like, generally speaking, women standing up for men. I didn't know you guys were a primarily UK-based or Canadian-based movement. Fast forward to now, people like me and Arvis, we're trying to make change and make things happen, but we're at a certain point post-conviction where our options are very limited, if we have any at all. And the best thing that we can do is have a very loud conversation. And I decided that when the sheriffs came to my house and did their yearly check, I was like, if I'm gonna talk about this, I'm gonna have to kind of blackball myself and be loud. Like there's no sense in being quiet about it. I need to try to be as loud as possible. And we just kind of started looking for avenues and people to talk to, people that would listen to us. And it's worked to a degree. Not that Arvis lives and breathes this stuff, man. Not that I don't care about it. He's in it every day. I just got a lot going on in my life. And every now and then I'll kind of get in the mood and I'll really hammer down and try to figure some stuff out. And usually what I end up doing is just trying to find different people to talk to. And it's usually pretty successful. The last guy that we got in touch with, he's got a big time social media influence. He was formerly incarcerated and he talks about justice reform and all that. And he's helped us out with some contacts. And he's actually got a friend now, a personal friend that is facing the same thing. He's in the military. His wife is filing for divorce, wants all these things to happen, and she'll drop her sexual assault allegation, so it's, we're just trying to find people to talk to.
Yeah, well, no, I'm really great. I'm glad that you came to us, and I'm glad that there are more and more people getting activated around this topic. So let's back up because I want to get into some of the details. So, first of all, what did you do in the military?
I worked as a gunner's mate in the Coast Guard for 13 years. And my last duty station was called the MSRT, which is the Maritime Security Response Team. I did a lot of cool training for a day that never came.
Sure.
We did. Our job was to do basically interdictions for things like counter drug, counter terror, counter piracy. I think we had 5 or 6 teams in that one unit. There's actually now 2 MSRTs in the United States. But back then we were the only one. And every now and then a team would get hooked up with something kind of cool and get to go do some real big dog stuff and make a difference. But most of us, like I said, a lot of cool training for something that never came. But I really enjoyed my job. I loved it.
Sure.
And prior to that, the majority of my my career was all law enforcement. As a gunner's mate, my role out of school was supposed to be like small arms training, accountability, munitions, shipboard cannon stuff. I never did anything like that ever. I went to a couple specialty schools right after my my main pipeline school. But then after that, it was just law enforcement, and that was it. Once I was in that community, I never got out. I didn't want out, and they wouldn't let you out anyways. So
yeah. And so you were in the Coast Guard. You did law enforcement.
Yes, sir.
Right. Oh, yeah. And where did you know who is now your ex-wife then, or did you meet her while you were like in that sort of like pursuing that career?
I did. I met her at my very first duty station. Within the last year of me being in St. Petersburg, Florida. Excuse me. I met her down there, and we got married right before I went off to my gunner's mate school.
How long were you guys together before you got married, if you don't mind me asking?
7 or 8 months.
Okay. You just felt like, I think that for a lot of guys, they want to get married, and they just want it like, oh, she's good. We share a lot in common. We have similar values. I'm going to marry her. Oh, yeah. And that's it. Like, just move on to the next step, right? Like, let's not date for 10 years.
It's definitely 2020, and notwithstanding the horrible way it ended. I mean, it was a mistake. I was 21.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So, I mean, I was young. She was young. And here we are, I'm about to leave. I got to move. I've got orders. Hey, if we get married, guess what? You can come with me on the government's dime. And we just kind of kept that up. Don't rush into marriage, kids. If you're listening, Don't do it.
Are there any? So you got married, right, and you went off to school, right? Or was that okay? And obviously you proposed. She said yes. Are there any children? Were there any children in the picture before or
yes.
As a result?
I have 2 sons with her.
Mm-hmm. And okay, so you got kids involved. So what I'm wondering about is, how do we get from everything seems like it's, moving forward amicably. You got a good woman, you have some kids, and then there's an allegation, so like what's if you don't, again, only share whatever you feel comfortable with, but like, how did we get there? What happened?
Well, we were married in total 7 years. It was rocky for the first half of that. Ended up with us separating. There was another man involved. She was in Florida. I was up in Virginia. We ended up getting back together. It's still kind of rocky. We're doing our best to make it work. There's money problems. And at one point, I kind of got fed up of the overspending. I was like, I can't do this anymore. It's breaking the bank. I was working a second job. I shouldn't have had to been doing that.
Where was the I'm sorry. What do you mean the overspending? Like, were you living a champagne lifestyle with beer money kind of thing, or was
not really? And it wasn't even things of like consequence. It was a lot of eating out. Like, I mean, that was, people don't realize how fast that adds up. You eat out 3 meals a day for 30 days. And, here I am, I'm packing my lunch, come home, eat cooked food. I don't know. And she was convinced that she was going to do homeschooling for our children, which I didn't agree with. I didn't like it. She was spending all kinds of money on that. We had a military exchange card. which is, you know, the credit card, that thing was maxed out constantly. And it was,
So
again, it was just, I can't even, it's like knickknacks and just like vanity things, you know, nothing that made sense, nothing that was practical.
Sure. Well, you guys were still pretty young, and
right.
again, like there's, you know, so you're spending some time apart. You're having some financial problems. Depending on, I don't know what the economy looked like at the time. I don't know what year this was, but that could have been a factor as well. So you just had these sort of like these things that were creating some stress, and you said there was some infidelity. And that was on her part?
Yes, sir.
And this was because you were like not around or something?
I don't really know. I mean, she told me after the fact, once we got back together, that she had been talking to him for a while, and that like when she would go on these walks, she'd be on the phone with him. So, that's kind of how that was. I didn't dig any more than I wanted to, because I feel like you dig too much, you find out stuff you didn't want to know.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of wanted to be naive about the whole thing. Like, listen, if you're going to come back, but you can't talk to this dude anymore. He's not a friend. He's somebody waiting in the wind, which isn't going to work. So, but yeah, she waited until I went to transfer from Washington State to Virginia. And when we went and made that transfer, she took off what she wanted, went to Florida, and didn't come back.
So she just like left the marriage?
Correct, and took our son with her.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
As an aside, I talked to a guy a little while ago who also lost his son. His wife took him into Russia. His son is in Russia now, and he met her in California, and he was like a Mexican guy. His son doesn't even speak English. Like he can't talk to his son, that she brought into Russia just to get away from him through Ukraine, like recently, like through you know, with all this war and all this stuff going on. During the whole conflict. Yeah.
That's bizarre.
Yeah. And he's still fighting, you know, to talk to his son, but I don't know. He's not optimistic. So then she left you, and then she made this allegation. So I'm just, and it's from nowhere, and there's
it's a little, timeline's a little messed up. So she left me. She's with this new guy down in Florida, and then I don't know if he dumped her or if she just really decided she made a mistake, but she's like, I screwed up, I want to come back. And then she comes back. 3 years pass. We end up having another child in between there. So those 3 years pass. We have 2 children now. The youngest is about 8 months old. That's kind of where we're at. Now that all goes down in 2014, and then the trial happens in 2016. So in 2014, she makes the allegation, and like I said, I was fed up over money. There was some other stuff going on too. She was hyper emotional. I didn't know she had some kind of issues going down, but she said she was medicated. I didn't know if she was or not. I'd never seen her take anything. But it was, I was not happy, and I wanted out, and I told her that. And within 2 weeks, I was sitting in front of my commander, being told I need to go talk to Coast Guard Investigative Services. I get down there, and they're like, "Hey, you're being accused of sexual assault." It was rapidly downhill from there.
So let's back up for a second. So did you guys did do a divorce? Did you guys go through the divorce proceedings like legally, or?
Correct. The divorce was finalized while I was incarcerated.
Okay. So she made the allegation, but she didn't go to the police, like civilian police. She went to She did?
She did. So what happens is she goes to the civilian police. They do an investigation. They talk to her. They tell her they recommend for her to go see a SANE to get an examination kit done. Well, she goes to 2. And we didn't find out that there was 2 kits done until way later, which ended up causing some kind of evidential problem. But anyway, she goes to see 2. They don't have findings. civilian authorities in Virginia Beach, because that's where we lived. They were declining to move forward with anything, and then they just kind of have this. I don't know if it was specific to that matter, or if it's like a just kind of known thing in the area that they, as a courtesy, they call up the military authorities, because they also have jurisdiction. So if Virginia Beach wanted to do anything, they had jurisdiction. So did the United States Coast Guard. So they gave them a call, and then they called my commander, set up the meeting, and got me down to headquarters to be interviewed.
So when I spoke to Arvis, he said that a lot of times they use the sort of, in-house military court to deal with these kinds of allegations.
Right.
And that there was, I don't know if you know, but that there was a new initiative or something that was happening within the military courts to be like, okay, we are told that, there's this number of sexual assault cases, and we're not getting enough convictions, so we gotta raise convictions to match the data that supposedly shows how often this happens.
Well, the data speaks for itself. That should tell you that they're taking trash charges to trial. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I kind of, just as a kind of segue into that, I can remember having the time to go through our legal library. We had a LexisNexis legal library that we had access to. They'd have to come in and back it up on little discs every time there's an update. I remember going through and doing a hand count between the Navy and the Air Force of the amount of sexual assault cases that went to trial, were contested, and were overturned on appeal. It was at 52%. 52% of sexual assault cases. And I did this in like 2018, and I had to go through and hand count all of them. And I wouldn't get deep into details. I would kind of focus on the sexual assault issue. I'd read that, go down, and reverse and remanded. Okay, that's one. And then I would tally that versus the total. And it was 52% of cases.
52% of cases, which were?
They were contested. Sexual assault charges, and they were overturned on appeal.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And the result of, so you say you were incarcerated in the brig for, was it like 3 years? 4 years?
A little over 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, what was it like to?
It wasn't all that bad. I don't want to say it was comfortable. I mean, you were there against your will. Nobody wanted to be there. It was just an easy transition. I still wore my uniform. I just didn't have a rank. It had my name, my service tape, and that was it. I wore my boots. Just like I've been doing for most of my adult life. I woke up at 5 a.m. every day, had breakfast, watched a little TV. I went to a job. I worked in the carpentry unit, and then I went on to graphic design and sign making at some point. The adjustment wasn't hard. I spent the first 6 months or so being in there, being really angry. But like any other facility, they have a lot of clinical services and things you can go to, and part of going to that is you go to these things and they give you time off your sentence, things like that. Basically good behavior days. And I went to them, and there's a lot of value in it. There's stuff to learn. I did the best to make the most of my time there. I read a lot of books, and a whole lot of soul searching, and kind of, I'm glad I had the mindset I did while I was in there, or life on the outside once I got out would have been a lot tougher. Cause like I said, I've adjusted pretty well. I got a pretty good life.
Yeah, I think you do. It sounds like you've come out of this in better shape than a lot of other guys, like guys who have been like legit thrown into prison, like real, like civilian prisons,
right.
and for unproven, like completely unproven allegations. So after you get out of the brig.
Mhm.
What else is left of you? You said you got court-martialed, right?
Correct.
So you are no longer like was it sorry, what I'm trying to think of what is you are no longer an active duty. It's a dishonorable
Yeah,
discharge.
correct. I got a dishonorable discharge. I did still manage to get virtually any VA benefit that somebody who's been honorably discharged, I'm able to get. And that is because I was in so long that I had an honorable discharge already, because when you re-enlist, you're honorably discharged, re-enlisted. So I had an honorable discharge under my belt already. I had an honorable enlistment. And because of that, I got my full GI Bill. I have access to all the grants, all the loans. If I want any of that, it's mine. Initially, sometimes what they'll do is when you apply, because you have to apply, they'll write back and say you don't qualify because of your discharge. Then all you have to do is be like, I understand. However, here's my honorable enlistment that qualifies me as per your rules and regulations, and then it gets fixed. And I tell everybody that it's very valuable. A lot of people don't know it. They think they don't get it. Most people qualify, even if they've gotten a DD.
Yeah. And because of again, it sounds like you're like in a bit of a limbo spot because there's a dishonorable discharge, but you're able to benefit. But are you also, like Arvis said, in his situation, he says that he can't technically be considered a veteran because of his dishonorable discharge. Is that also the case for you?
I think so. And I haven't ran into a situation where that's actually caused me problems. It's not something I wave around a lot or try to use a lot of outside of the VA. But basically the things I want from the VA, I get because of that honorable enlistment. I believe Arvis was an officer. Correct me if I'm wrong. They may have a different set of rules for them. I think that may hit differently. Don't quote me on that, but
well, yeah. So it's pragmatic. You're thinking of it in pragmatic terms. It's like, okay, that's fine. There isn't, but I assume because just the allegations like this, as serious as they are, even if you know that there's no way that you did this, but it seems like everyone else either believes it or they don't concern themselves enough to actually like look into it and confirm it. So they just would rather just let it go, throw you under the bus, whatever. And I think that from
day one, that was the most shocking part. Like I could not wrap my head around why they just clung to it and went full steam ahead from investigation, prosecution, and then the guilty verdict. It still seems surreal.
Do you think that there's some component of this that is politically driven? I mean, not you specifically, but the theme, the overall big picture, that there's go ahead.
Absolutely. I mean, the probably the key figurehead that we all kind of view as kind of, Voldemort or Satan is Senator Gillibrand. She is kind of leading the charge on everything, the Me Too movement. I don't want to disparage women who've actually suffered at the hands of men, women, whoever, and have been assaulted or sexually assaulted in any way. I'm not going to sit here and say that doesn't happen. It definitely happens. It happens in our services. It happens in our colleges. It happens everywhere. I mean, it's a time-old crime that people are horrible to each other. They will hurt each other, absolutely. But any time that somebody zealously clings to one side and refuses to make concessions towards the other, it's hard for me to accept them as being truthful in their advocacy for whatever it is they're trying to speak towards. And Senator Gillibrand is definitely one of them. She's got a heavy hand on the scales, pushing down to our armed forces, saying that, hey, we need certain results. We need to see this stuff happen. And I wish I had looked them up and had them quoted and ready. But there's a few in the Air Force, particularly, where Senator Gillibrand is quoted in there as having pushed that unlawful command influence down so heavy onto the Secretary of the Air Force, which then moves on to the judges. And this is all tracked via email. And the military appellate court said absolutely, and that's unacceptable. Like, we cannot have that kind of pressure put down on people who are supposed to operate this judicial system fairly. Basically saying that if we expect certain results, if the line isn't towed, people are going to lose jobs. And like with any kind of scandal or anything like that, I mean, follow the money. And in this case, the money is a much more nuanced thing. It's not like cash payments or bribes necessarily. It's careers, it's jobs, it's positions of power. And to that degree, I kind of understand why people would just kind of be like, okay, it's my job to toe the line. It's my quality of life on the line. If I don't do the things they want me to do, I'm going to do it. And we have people come out after the fact that have played in these roles for, victim advocacy or whatever, that say, yeah, the system's kind of messed up now that they're not under the thumb of that pressure anymore, But yeah, I definitely think there's a political component. Senator Gillibrand herself will sit there and say that women deserve to be believed, victims deserve to be believed. Why would they lie about things like this? And then, in the last couple of years, there have been slews of allegations made towards political candidates on both sides, including Joe Biden. And somebody asked her what she thought about these allegations. She's like, not possible. He's a great man. Now all of a sudden they don't deserve to be believed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But like Brett Kavanaugh is clearly guilty, the judge.
Right. They don't deserve to be believed. They deserve to be respected. They deserve to have their claims vetted and investigated. They don't deserve to be believed.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Trust but verify. Right.
Absolutely.
So then the question becomes, and I'm glad, because like we don't have a problem dipping into this, and I didn't know that Gillibrand was like one of the big I guess pushers of this, right? Yeah. So then the question becomes, you said, always follow the money. I was thinking, well, who benefits and how? And I think you're right. It's like, it's not so much about cash money because they don't really care that much about cash money. Otherwise they wouldn't be printing it. Like, it's not running out. Right. So I think it's about like, power and securing a position. It's about securing power and maintaining what they have. And one of the things that's very, very useful is claiming that women as a group in a collective sense are victimized by this system that we can't see or taste or touch, but it's there. And our propensity, our condition as human beings, men and women, is to care about women because we need women to perpetuate the species. So we're going to see them as more valuable. So if you make them into a victim class, then everybody, men and women, are going to both come together and say, well, we got to do something about this. This is obviously a problem. And then but then this begs the question, why would you throw men, and it's going to be men mostly that are probably the victims of these allegations, because we have done reports on stories where women have victimized men, where women have victimized children, and they don't become high profile cases. They don't get a lot of exposure. Politicians certainly aren't trumpeting these things, from the podium, and the women often get a slap on the wrist for the crimes. I mean, we're talking about essentially pedophilia in a lot of cases. So if that being the case, it is going to be mostly men that have to deal with these false allegations, or at least unproven allegations, because you can never know for sure. It's like a notoriously difficult crime to prove. But then the question is, why would they do that? And I don't know what you think, but Arvis said that it's political insofar as women are the majority of the voter base. Women are also most likely to vote. So there is a benefit politically to essentially create a or construct a narrative that men are dangerous to women, and in particular men domestically, like not necessarily foreign men, but men here in this country are dangerous to their women, and so women have to vote for such and such candidate or party member so they can protect them from men, essentially. Does that make sense?
It does. And when it comes to the false allegations, like why would a woman take the time to make a false allegations? Well, here's the thing. The average person lies 2 times a day. People will lie more often. They will lie more in depth and complicatedly, the more there is on the line. So we have a system where the military removes responsibility of any kind. If your allegation is deemed anywhere near false, they're not going to touch them. They won't touch them. Particularly if the accuser is a civilian. Take my ex-wife, for example. I found out later in the process that one of the first things they do once that kind of allegation meets the doorsteps of Coast Guard Investigative Services, they send them to a family advocate, and the family advocate says, we're real sorry about what you've gone through. Let me show you all these things we can do for you if your husband's convicted. She got 2/3 of my pay for 3 years. She got insurance. She got college tuition. She got stipends for childcare. She's not 6-figure rich, but that's not insubstantial at all. She got to go basically live life on the Coast Guard's dime for 3 years and not have to worry about anything.
That's like serious incentives.
And got a slam dunk for a divorce. I have no visitation rights for my boys at all. None. I haven't seen them in 6 years. That's tough.
It is.
And it's just so bizarre to me, like to think that, people will not make false accusations. When we don't have these barriers in place, there's no way people are going to abuse those. Like, imagine if they had that kind of barrier removed for any other crime, and the barrier for entry was so low. We just have to believe women. He stole money from me. Okay, we believe you. He's incarcerated. By the way, here's all these benefits. That's so bizarre.
No, but they do it, and it's also true of divorce courts as well. Like just divorce courts outside of that. Like I know I have old friends who, when their ex-wife was like thinking about getting a divorce, the lawyers come in and they say, "Oh, here's all the stuff you can do to get everything you can out of them," and then a lot of times they go along with it, and it involves these kinds of allegations, whether they make overt allegations of rape or sexual assault, or maybe they just say things like, "Well, he makes me feel unsafe. I'm afraid around him. I think he might hurt me," and that is super effective too. So there's definitely incentives. I got a message. I got a Super Chow here, paid message from Zeranx. He gives us $5. I'm going to read it really quick. He says, remember that Kirsten Gillibrand's father, Doug Rudnick, worked as a lawyer and lobbyist for NXIVM. Gillibrand has stated that she was unaware of NXIVM until it made national headlines in 2017. Very convenient. So what is, I want to see what that is. NXIVM. Sure. I think it's a Roman numeral, but I'm just going to look it up really quick because it might be relevant. So Nexim was it's a cult? Are you privately? It says it was a cult led by convicted racketeer and sex offender Keith Rainier. It's also the name of the defunct company that Rainier founded in 1998, which provided seminars ostensibly about human potential development and served as a front organization for criminal activity. Well, that was a plot twist I did not expect.
Right.
Well, thank you, Zeranx, for that. Not surprised. Nothing surprises me anymore. So anyway, thanks for the message. What else was I going to say? So all this, how did we get to the point where, or at what point, and how did it go about that you were essentially registered as a sex offender? How did that in Oklahoma, right? Is that what you said?
Right. Yeah, there's a federal statute, and I can't. It's somewhere under SORNA, which is a sex offender registration, Sex Offender National Registration Act. I think that's the acronym. And you know, the military is the only jurisdiction that doesn't have a unanimous verdict requirement that is looped in under that federal code that says that if we're convicted of a qualifying crime, and there's addendums and attachments for what constitutes a qualifying crime, then we have to register as a sex offender. And basically the default for every state, because the military is so different in the way they charge things, is top tier, you know, because they can't narrow it down. And the basis for my ex-wife's allegation was the one that she rolled with at trial went as follows: that she said that I was badgering for sex on the night in question, and she said, "Just take me." Wanted him to think I was into it. I played along. I switched positions. I tried to take initiative. I told him I love him during twice, and I told him I loved him after. But I was afraid of him, so I just went along with it. And that's what led to my conviction. She didn't point to any particular event or object or threat or anything that said she was afraid. But that was, again, you know, we get to the testimony before that, where I'm a terrible husband, and none of it that she's talking about is criminal. And it was nothing that I was ready for. I would have been ready to shoot down 95% of everything she said, but she was just kind of allowed to ramble about how awful our marriage was and how I was controlling, and did all these things that were unfair and mean to her friends, or whatever. But that's the allegation she went with at trial. And we presented and showed too that wasn't her first allegation. She'd made an allegation to another coastie many years ago, but didn't move forward with it publicly. And once she was confronted with that in the CJIS investigative room, she wanted to stop talking to them. She also, she did kind of like a dry run with a close friend of hers a month prior, saying Jerry raped me last night. And the friend was absolutely certain on the date. And she described this kind of like this, you know, stoic trance that she was in, like she was traumatized by. She was doing a dry run. She was trying to see what she could kind of get by with. And it's even evolved after the fact. Not that it matters, but I've seen YouTube posts of hers where she's reading in front of people about her trauma and her events, where she claims that I tied her up and took her multiple times that night, or I held a gun to her head. That's another one I've heard. I had an ex-fiance of hers call me and be like, "Listen, for years I thought you were the worst monster on the planet because of the things she told me. But once he called it quits, guess who starts living a very familiar story? That poor guy." It's just, I mean, I don't talk about it very often, but every time I do, it's very frustrating. I just don't know how we got this far.
I'm actually pretty surprised at how well you're keeping it together. Because I think that the one thing that I think really gets under people's skin is when someone breaks their trust and they realize that, you know, they've been lied to. I think that, like, or the person that they thought they knew, they don't know. Like they're you know, they could flip on a dime like that.
Right. So, well, I mean, when you're in love, you put on those blinders, man. And
I know.
You're only looking in one direction.
Yep.
Well,
No, I get it. Yeah, it is. So what does it mean for you that to be on the sex offender registry? Like, do you have any, you ever, like, because I know that you said that you're in a good place, like you have people around you that, you know, care about you, and they're not like that history is not a problem, it seems. But do you ever have any issues with that? Like, where, you know, I don't know, like, do you have to announce yourself? Are you not allowed to?
No, there's been one job where I had to kind of disclose.
What happened? Hello? Uh-oh. Just a moment, guys. I think he had to step away for a second. Hopefully he can come back on shortly. Let me see what you guys are saying in the meantime. We're going to be going only for a little bit longer, and then we're going to stop the show. So, an actress from the CW series Smallville was a big player in the NXIVM. I had a feeling I heard that before, and I remember. It's, oh, he hung up. He had to leave, I guess. Hold on a second, guys. I'm sorry. Let me see if there's something I can do here. All right, well, I'm gonna have to like lower this a little bit. I think he dropped out. I don't know why. I hope it wasn't something that I said. But I guess I'll give him a minute to see if he comes back. Let me see if I can message him. He just kind of dropped out suddenly, so that's a bit concerning. But anyway, yeah, the chick from Smallville, we reported on that on our show, but it was a long time ago, so I don't remember much about it. So let me just check and see if he's okay, and I will send him a message. Let me just send him a message. If he, I'll give him a couple minutes, and I may just have to end it there. Allison Mack, that was her name. Yes, Allison Mack was said to have initiated the branding of other women that were part of Rainier's cult harem. Yes, that's right. She did engage in that. I think that it is very interesting that Doug Rutnick, who is Kirsten Gillibrand's father, was a lawyer for the cult. That is wild. So, it's a shame. It's a shame. All right, let me switch back. I don't know, guys. I may have to just end the show abruptly because he had to take off suddenly. But hopefully he's okay wherever he is. So, well, look. I will see if we can set up something with him another time. He's not coming back, and I haven't heard from him. I don't know what happened. I feel like maybe dealing with these kinds of allegations is harder than it looks. I mean, I would imagine. So, anyways, thanks guys for coming on the show. Sorry for the abrupt ending. It can't be helped. This is a live show. You never know what's going to happen. So thanks for coming on the show. If you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe. If you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today. And please share this video. I will try to get him back on again. Maybe we can finish what we started. Thanks so much for coming on today's Fireside Chat. And we'll talk to you all in the next one. Have a good day, everybody.
Men's right activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.